أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. قل إنما أعظكم بواحدة أن تقوموا لله مثني وفرادي ثم تتفكروا ما بصاحبكم من جنة إن هو إلا نذير لكم بين يدي عذاب شديد. قل ما سألتكم من أجر فهو لكم إن أجري إلا على الله وهو على كل شيء شهيد. قل إن ربي يقذف بالحق علام الغيوب. قل جيء الحق وما يبدئ الباطل وما يعيد. قل إن ضللت فإنما أضل على نفسي وإن اهتديت فبما يوحي إلي ربي إنه سميع قريب. ولو تري إذ فزعوا فلا فوت وأخذوا من مكان قريب وقالوا آمنا به وأني لهم التناؤش من مكان بعيد وقد كفروا به من قبل ويقذفون بالغيب من مكان بعيد وحيل بينهم وبين ما يشتهون كما فعل بأشياعهم من قبل إنهم كانوا في شك مريب. Can we start now? No, please. No introduction. الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين بعثه الله شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا. Honestly, my brothers and my sisters, it's always an absolute pleasure to see all you brothers and sisters attending these programs here in this wonderful Masjid Al-Furqan here in Manchester, which has become a hotbed for lessons, seminars, knowledge that is spread. So to see you guys coming so consistently all the time, honestly, it's very, very heartwarming to see. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless every single one of you guys for attending and to keep you all steadfast upon His deen. In today's lecture, my brothers and my sisters, I want to cover a topic that is normally not covered much. And this is how the righteous of the past would welcome the month of Ramadan. It has been attributed to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu that he was asked, كيف كنتم تستقبلون رمضان? How did you used to welcome the month of Ramadan? The response was, ما كان أحدنا يجرؤ على استقبال الهلال وفي قلبه مثقال ذرة من حقد على أخيه المسلم. We wouldn't dare to welcome the crescent, the month of Ramadan, and any of us would be holding a grudge in his heart or any hatred in his heart towards his Muslim brother. You know, my brothers and my sisters, I know and you know that we are in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness. We are sick and tired of these sins that we constantly keep falling back into time and time again. And we know what these sins are doing to us. These sins are tearing our hearts apart. We've become sick and tired, distraught, miserable, spiritually dead and empty due to a lot of the filth that we find ourselves engaging in. Our hearts have become so dark. And let me just put this out for the record, right? We as human beings are bound to sin. This is something that is universal. As the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, كل بني آدم خطاء. Every single son of Adam, every single human being is not just someone that makes a mistake or two. Here the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam referred to him as khata, someone who constantly and persistently falls into sin. But then the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وَخَيْرُ الْخَطَّائِينَ التَّوَّابُونَ. The best of those who constantly sin are those who always keep returning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? That is the state of a believer. And this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really, really loves. Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ التَّوَّابِينَ وَيُحِبُّ الْمُتَطَهِّرِينَ. Allah loves those who constantly make tawbah. Right? Constantly return back to Him all the time. The shaitan doesn't want that. The people of desires don't want that, brothers and sisters. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. He says, وَاللَّهُ يُرِيدُ أَن يَتُوبَ عَلَيْكُمْ وَيُرِيدُ الَّذِينَ يَتَّبِعُونَ الشَّهَوَاتِ أَن تَمِيلُوا مَيْلًا عَظِيمًا. Allah says, Allah wishes and wants for you to be forgiven. However, the people of shahawat, the people who follow their whims and their desires, they want you to go far, far astray. You take 1,000 steps away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my brothers and my sisters, you only need one step to return back to Allah Azza wa Jal. It is this month, the month of Ramadan, where the worst of the people, it doesn't matter if you're a drug dealer, it doesn't matter if you're someone that goes clubbing on a Friday night, every single week, right? It doesn't matter what you are consuming. The month of Ramadan, my brothers and my sisters, isn't just for practicing people. Let me make that very, very clear. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, are you not a believer, my brothers and my sisters? Doesn't this wasf, this description apply to me and you? Did Allah Azza wa Jal say, O you who practices and goes to the masjid, indeed fasting has been prescribed upon you? Is that what Allah said? No. He said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Right? O you who believes. Take this personally, my brothers and my sisters. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he would say, if you hear, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, fa'ar'iha sam'ak. Make sure you lend it your ear, because you're about to hear something extremely, extremely important. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to the drug dealer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to the clubber. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to the woman who's let loose of herself online. He is speaking to every individual that considers himself a person of iman, a person of faith. Right? كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامِ. That which has been prescribed upon you is siyam, to fast, just like the people before you. Perhaps you may acquire at-taqwa لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. And we'll speak about the taqwa inshaAllah ta'ala in a short while. However, the point that I wanted to make, my brothers and my sisters, here Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was saying, we wouldn't dare to welcome the month of Ramadan while we were holding grudges or hatred in our hearts towards our brothers. We all sin, right? What is the relation of what I was saying and also the statement of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud? We all sin. We look at the month of Ramadan as an opportunity, a lifeline that Allah Azza wa Jal has thrown our way, right? To better ourselves, to flip our lives around. We are going to be begging Allah, Ya Allah, forgive me. I've got this sin. I've got that sin. I've got this addiction that I'm really, really struggling to overcome. I struggle to control my eyes. It's a problem. Ya Allah, help me and forgive the sins that I have fallen into in the last 11 months of the year. However, my brothers and my sisters, you know what's very unfortunate? I just looked at the time. We've only got another 14 minutes. You know what's very, very unfortunate, my brothers and my sisters? some of us may lose out on this opportunity of being forgiven. You know why, brothers and sisters? Because we are not ready to remove the grudges that we have in our hearts. We are not ready to remove the traces of hatred that we have in our hearts towards our fellow Muslim brothers and sisters. Right? Which is very, very unfortunate. You know the hadith that we hear, the khatibs and the imams, probably hear it next week or so, when the Messenger said, Man sama Ramadana, wa man qama Ramadana, wa man yaqum laylat al-qadri. In all three hadiths it said, imanan wa ihtisaba. Imanan meaning, musaddiqan biwa'dillah, this individually believes in the reward of Allah. Wa ihtisaban, hoping for the reward of Allah Azza wa Jal, because he does this out of sincerity. Right? He does it solely for Allah Jalla fi'ula. غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ. His past sins will be forgiven and pardoned. This is what we want. We're sick and tired, brothers and sisters. Right? We are empty and spiritually finished. Right? And the first step to building back that spiritual contentment and that fulfillment and satisfaction is to return back to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Ya Allah, forgive me. And perhaps when He forgives us, we end up taking a positive direction to change. But that may not happen, brothers and sisters. You know why? Because of what we're holding in our hearts towards our brothers and sisters. Some of us may not even be speaking to our parents. Imagine that, guys. We've cut off our parents. There's that dua that all of us have memorized. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she came to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and she said, Ara'ayta ya Rasul Allah, in alimtu ayya laylatin laylatul qadr. If I come to know when Laylatul Qadr is, O Messenger of Allah, what do you advise me to say? He told her, Quli, say, Allahumma, O Allah, innaka afoon, you are afu, tuhibbul afwa, you love to forgive, so pardon me, forgive me. Ibn Rajab rahmatullahi alayhi, my brothers and my sisters, he says, Al-afu min asma'illahi ta'ala. You know, afu is from the names of Allah Azza wa Jal. وَهُوَ يَتَجَاوَزُ عَنْ سَيِّئَاتِ عِبَادِهِ. It is He who overlooks the sins of His servants. الْمَاحِ لِآثَارِهَا عَنْهُمْ. Allah Azza wa Jal removes the remaining traces of these sins that we have been falling into. وَهُوَ يُحِبُّ الْعَفُوَ. Allah Azza wa Jal loves the pardon. وَيُحِبُّ أَنْ يَعْفُوَ عَنْ عِبَادِهِ, and loves to pardon His servants. وَيُحِبُّ لِعِبَادِهِ أَنْ يَعْفُوَ بَعْضُهُمْ عَنْ بَعْضٍ. And He loves for His servants to pardon and forgive one another. Right? He loves that for His servants. And then look what He says. فَإِذَا عَفَى بَعْضُهُمْ عَنْ بَعْضٍ عَامَلَهُمْ بِعَفْوِهِ. When they pardon and they forgive one another, it is then that Allah Azza wa Jalla will forgive them. It is then that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will pardon them. Right? We're going to be raising our hands, Ya Allah, help me, Ya Allah, forgive me, right? That forgiveness may not come because, my brothers and my sisters, we are not ready to treat the people the same way we like to be treated. And this is a concept that is mentioned in the Quran. When growing up in nursery, we used to hear about this concept all the time. What goes around comes around. Treat the people the same way you like to be treated. Not everything that a non-Muslim say is always bad, guys. That's actually an Islamic concept. What goes around comes around. Oh, I love that. It's mentioned in so many places in the Quran, and likewise in the prophetic tradition of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The way you treat the people, expect to be treated the same way. Al-jaza'u min jinsi al-amal. Right? وَلْيَخْشَى الَّذِينَ لَوْ تَرَكُوا مِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّةً ضِعَافًا خَافُوا عَلَيْهِمْ أو خَافُوا عَلَيْهِمْ. Right? Allah Azza wa Jalla talks about the one who has been given the responsibility to look after the orphan. The way you treat him, be extra careful, because tomorrow you are going to leave behind offspring and someone else will come along and mistreat them. Be careful. What goes around comes around. Allah Azza wa Jalla is instilling this within us. Right? Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam also said, Irhamu turhamu, ighfiru yughfar lakum. Hadithun sahih. Have mercy upon the people and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have mercy upon you. Right? Forgive the people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive and pardon you. Right? It's a very, very important concept. Month of Ramadan is more to me than just Quran, fasting, Taraweeh, guys. There are other very deep aspects, and one of them is to clean our hearts. We started a lecture with the statement of Abdullah Mas'ud, we wouldn't dare to welcome the crescent, meaning the month of Ramadan, while we were holding hatred in our hearts, right, towards a fellow believer. You know, it's even worse than that, my brothers and my sisters. This person that you hold some sort of hatred towards, he's from the most righteous of people, and you don't actually know that he's righteous. How many a time might we run into some scuffle with an individual, maybe on the street, or it could be a neighbor. He just looks like the average Joe, but he has secret acts that are just between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that nobody knows about. We get into a little scuffle or a little argument, a dispute, right? We say something to that individual that really, really hurts him, right? But because we don't know how righteous he is, it can go a very, very long way, my brothers and my sisters, in what eventually ends up flipping onto you. Right? Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullahi alayhi has a very powerful statement. He says, وَمِنْ أَعْظَمِ خُبْثِ الْقُلُوبِ, from the worst and the most filthiest of hearts, أَنْ يَكُونَ فِي قَلْبِكَ غِلٌّ لِخِيَارِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, that you are holding in your heart hatred towards the best of the Muslims, right? That little argument that happened between you and that person, you don't know him like that, right? But he has what? Secret acts that are just between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's righteous, he's pious. But then you continue to maybe backbite him, you continue to slander him, you continue to say all sorts of things about that individual. Ibn Taymiyyah here is saying it is from the most filthiest of hearts that you hold some sort of hatred in your heart towards the best of the believers. Whether you know that person to be a righteous individual or you don't. Right? So my brothers and my sisters, it's time to pick up that phone, to make that call. You want your heart to become soft, right? I've done series in the past where I talked about how to soften up the heart, or some acts that really soften up the heart. I went through 15. One of them is al-afu, to pardon and to forgive, to remove the grudges that you have in your heart. It's not easy, my brothers and my sisters. I'm not going to sit here as if this is an easy thing to be doing, right? It's not easy, brothers and sisters. I still struggle, and this is just me being honest with you guys, to really just remove out of my heart that grudge for someone who laughs in my face and then he stabs me in the back. Takes me a lot longer than someone who may have wronged me. It's not easy. It's hard. But we can't expect to reach these very high, lofty levels of a taqwa, of piety, of high station in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if, my brothers and my sisters, we are not going to really do mujahada of the nafs, striving against the nafs. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا, as Allah says. If you ask yourself, what are some of the reasons as to why you've cut off your brother, or your cousin, or your relative, or your friend, or that neighbor? Wallahi, my brothers and my sisters, it boils down to the most pathetic, most trivial, the most petty of things, when you think about it. Right? We've heard of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and I'm going to mention another two narrations, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and then we're done. Number one, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, my brothers and my sisters, went through a very, very huge test. Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu's daughter, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, was slandered. Now imagine, my brother, your wife, or your daughter, or your sister, or your mother is slandered. One spreads filthy things about them, right? You will see tables being flipped, jaws being broken, and blood being spilt, right? We have ghayrah, protective jealousy. That is not going down, right? Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu had a cousin called Mistah ibn Uthatha. When Mistah ibn Uthatha migrated from Mecca to Al-Madinah, he didn't have these social benefits that we benefit from today, like child tax credit or housing benefits, or these weekly benefits that we pick up. UK, they're very generous, right? If all of these benefits, he didn't have that. His only source of income was Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who was wealthy, right? Abu Bakr radiallahu became furious and he said, Wallahi, لا أنفق على مصطح بعدما قال في عائشة. After today, I will not spend on Mistah because of what he said about Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. A verse came down, the historical context of when Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَلَا يَأْتَلِ أُولُو الْفَضْلِ مِنْكُمْ وَالسَّعَةِ أَنْ يُؤْتُوا أُولِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ وَالْمُهَاجِرِينَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Allah Azza wa Jalla was addressing Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, a person of virtue, a person of grace, right? A person of excellence. Those people of excellence and virtue, right, should not take an oath that they will stop spending on the muhajirin. Allah told Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا. Forgive and forget, turn the page. أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Wouldn't you wish for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you? This was the historical context as why this verse in Surah An-Nur came down. How many hours did Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu take to take heed of this, or to act upon this instruction, my brothers and my sisters? Did it take him days? Did it take him months? Right? Look at the seriousness of the slander that was spread about his own daughter. And when you are pressed by your cousin or a relative, is a lot more harder to take, my brothers and my sisters, than when it is someone that you don't know. وَظُلْمُ ذَوِي الْقُرْبَى أَشَدُّ مَضَادَةً مِنْ وَقْعِ الْحِسَامِ الْمُهَنَّدِ. The poet, he says, I think I said it right, the dhulm, the oppression of a relative is a lot more difficult to take, right, than when being striked by the Indian sword. Indian sword was like the sword that was used as an example, that was extremely what? Powerful and effective. I'm nearly done, Shaykh Ubaidah. I know what that means when you come sit here. Are you brothers and sisters with me? Straight away when the verse came down, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, Bala, inni la uhibbu an yaghfir Allahu li. Yes, by Allah, I love that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives and pardons me, right? Not only did he forgive him, right, but he continues spending on him. And there's a difference between al-afu and also al-safh, right? Al-afu is tarkul mu'akhada, is to stop holding that individual to account. And al-safha, you turn the page, you act like that thing never ever happened. Right? Acting like it never happened. And of course, al-safh is a step further than what? Al-afu. Right? Wallahi, brothers and sisters, you pick up that phone, you make that call, almost instantly. You can feel that a huge burden has been taken off your shoulders and your heart now begins to soften. Second narration. Another two narrations and I'm done. Hadith Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad rahmatullahi alayhi. Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, my brothers and my sisters, was sitting with his companions, and then the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, يطلع عليكم الآن رجل من أهل الجنة. There will enter upon you an individual who is from the people of Jannah. A man walked in and the companions looked at him in awe. What does he do? Right? There was another occasion the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said the exact same thing. يطلع عليكم الآن رجل من أهل الجنة. There will enter upon you a man from the people of Jannah. Same individual walked in. What does he do? The companions are thinking. Third time round, يطلع عليكم الآن رجل من أهل الجنة. There will enter upon you a man from the people of Jannah. Same thing. Same individual. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As, the righteous companion that he was, brothers and sisters, right? He really wanted to know. As he wants to be from the people of Jannah, he approaches him and he says he wants to spend the night with him. You would think to yourself, this person probably spends the whole night praying to Allah. It is one of those acts of worship that gives a fast track to becoming a wali, a close servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my brothers and my sisters. To wake up in the last third of the night, right? To seclude yourself with Allah Jalla fi ula alone, right? So he said, I didn't see him waking up. He wasn't a type that was like, doing qiyamul layl. So then later on he asked him, what is it that you do, right? What is it that you do? He said to him, ما هو إلا ما رأيت. It's whatever you've seen. غير أني لا أجد في نفسي لأحد من المسلمين غشا ولا أحسد أحدا على خير أعطاه الله إياه. Right. Also, right, whenever I go to sleep, I don't hold any hatred in my heart towards any Muslim. And I don't have hasad, envy in my heart towards any Muslim for that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed him with. So Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As, he said, هذه التي بلغت بك. This is what caused you to become from the people of Jannah. وهي التي لا نطيق. And this is what we find so difficult with. This is what we find so hard to carry out. Right? That is some azim thing, my brothers and my sisters. And the last narration, my brothers and my sisters, and this is perhaps maybe the most touching, Allahu A'lam, which one you find touching out of the three narrations that I mentioned. Hassan al-Basri rahmatullahi alayhi, from the great Salaf of the past. We know, my brothers and my sisters, how difficult it is to stand in the last third of the night. No one's going to say that it's mandatory upon you or enforced upon you. But if you're not waking up, you're really, really missing out. Imam al-Shafi'i said, when you make dua, right, in the last third of the night, it is the arrow that doesn't miss its target. Meaning gets accepted straight away. Right? Of course, this is when Allah Azza wa Jalla comes down, right? يَنزِلُ رَبُّنَا تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى كُلَّ لَيْلٍ إِلَى سَمَاءِ الدُّنْيَا حين يبقى ثلث الليل الأخير. So Hassan al-Basri, my brothers and my sisters, after waking up, after finding himself in this very, very special part of the night, with all the du'as that he could make, and of course when we wake up we have 101 things to ask Allah Azza wa Jal for, and rightfully so, right? No issue whatsoever. And of all the du'as that he could make, you know what he's begging Allah Azza wa Jal? Allahumma a'fu amman zalamani. Oh Allah, forgive those who have oppressed me. Oh Allah, forgive those who have wronged me. He would say this so excessively and abundantly that one time a man was walking past his house and he heard Hassan al-Basri saying this. Next morning he approached him and he said, Oh Hassan, tamannayt, I began to wish anni kuntu mimman zalamak, that I was from amongst those who oppressed you. I began to wish that. Imagine that. I began to wish that I was from amongst those who oppressed you. He said, why? Because you're making so much dua for them. You're making so much dua for those who have wronged you. Right? So he said, why do you do this? He said, Allah said in the Quran, فَمَنْ عَفَى وَأَصْلَحَ فَأَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. The one who pardons and rectifies, indeed his reward is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His reward is with Allah Jalla fi ula. Are you brothers and sisters with me? Right? It is one of those acts of worship where the dua has not been limited to anything. It hasn't been limited to a specific number. Afshir, Shaykh, afshir. It hasn't been limited to anything. Does that make sense, my brothers and my sisters? Right? لعلكم تتقون. Inshallah ta'ala, the rest of the mashayikh that elaborate on it. I spoke a little bit about it yesterday in Dar es Salaam, and also in the lecture that I gave in Green Lane Masjid Our brother Ismail read so beautifully. It's on the channel, inshallah ta'ala. A lot more detail in how to acquire that. But I thought this aspect was important and is not spoken about enough. I hope we can do that, inshallah ta'ala. Pick up that phone, make that call, and remove the grudges that you have in your heart. Perhaps we might have a Ramadan where that huge